All right. Well, I guess that means since we have folks here, we should get started.
Let's do it.
So I guess we'll start with a couple of quick intros. We have a couple of intro slides in true like B2B marketer format, I guess. But wanted to start out with some quick intros of who we are, what we do, how we got together, any of that. So from our side of the house, who wants to go first? I'm going to nominate Meg.
Okay. All right. My name is Meg Scarborough. I'm the CEO and founder of Megawatt. We are a B2B tech content marketing agency. We're a small agency of about 20 and fully remote. So our expertise is obviously in B2B content marketing, especially around tech.
Thanks, Meg. All right. Shireen, you're next.
Hi, everyone. I see a couple of familiar names. My name is Shireen Shaheen. I'm a product marketer in the Boston area. Actually, I think we're all pretty much local area, which is cool. I've been in product marketing about 10 years now. I started my career in that at Constant Contact. It's where I know Carrie from, and I think a couple others that are actually joining in.
I was going to say, I think there's a whole host of CT people.
Yeah, we have a little fan club, which is awesome. And about 3.5 years ago, I started my own consulting company in product marketing, and I focus on B2B companies, SaaS, and mostly enterprise, but I have a mix of SMB and enterprise experience.
Thanks, Shireen. All right, John, you're up.
All right, I'm John. I'm CEO of Compound Growth Marketing. We're a demand generation marketing firm that works with companies 5 to 70 million in revenue, mostly in B2B SaaS, but also B2B technology. I've been in the industry for 15 years now, spent the first 12 years of my career working in-house at LinkedIn, Workable, Yesware, helping to build out demand generation teams, and then decided to parlay that into a consulting career.
Cool. Thanks, John. Okay, so that just leaves me. I'm Carrie Thiels, everybody. I think I know a lot of folks on this call, hopefully. I am a demand generation specialist. I have my own consultancy. I typically help SaaS companies anywhere from Series B up through public. I have sort of a niche in cybersecurity, but not totally. So Meg and I work a lot together on sort of content-driven demand generation programs. And really, I'm sort of rethinking demand generation and have a whole new philosophy on how we actually do demand gen for B2B tech. That's not focused on lead generation anymore, but really focused on bridging that gap between brand and content and your demand generation capabilities. So that's me and that's us. And we'll get right into our agenda here. Let me throw some slides up. I mean, since the title of our show here is around how to accelerate growth in the 2023 marketing budget apocalypse, I have some fitting imagery here for us. I was going to go with Walking Dead images, but I figured that might be a little jarring at noon on a Monday. So we did intros here, and now I'm going to turn it over to Meg just to give us a little snapshot of the landscape out there. I think we're all aware of this, but let's just put some things in context. Meg?
Yeah, absolutely. So the stats show that 240,000 tech employees have been laid off across the last about year, 2022 and 2023. So I know many of you who are listening to this may be feeling the effects of that, whether you've been part of a layoff or had part of your team laid off. It certainly does not make things easier from a marketing standpoint. And another stat that we found interesting from a survey of about 8,000 marketers, so not just tech, but 21% of B2B marketers plan to cut their marketing budgets in 2023. I personally would be willing to wager, I'd be curious to hear what everyone else thinks, that number is really low. I think it's actually
absolutely low.
Quite a bit higher than that.
I've been hearing all over our industry from people who are in-house, from people who are agency, from people who are vendors, that everybody's budgets are getting slashed in some way. So
yeah.
And I think the interesting thing is we're seeing it done in different ways, which we can talk about. But I think different things are getting, I haven't seen a predictable model of what's getting cut.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah, I think we're at kind of the point of this curve where it's not a lot of fun, right? It's a lot of talk about layoffs. So that really makes it not enjoyable. But I'm kind of excited about what's next for marketing after we get through 2023 to think about like a focus on actual customer economics and not just spending unbelievable amounts of money and really focusing on efficiency. And I don't think it will quite be like 2008 to 2022, but I would agree. I even some of the really successful companies that we're talking to are also like that are still growing and would not seem to be impacted by the economy are still making cuts to their budget.
Yeah. And just one last stat, 74% of marketers say the economic downturn is influencing their budget decisions. And I would again guess that 100% probably are actually being affected by the downturn. So,
well, yeah, it's a vicious cycle, right? You see your neighbor in technology, you know, comparable companies cutting budgets, having layoffs, and then the reaction is to kind of pull back and say like, oh, I should be doing the same thing too, even if your numbers and economics don't say that you should. So I think that fear and uncertainty is driving this behavior a lot of times too. Go ahead, Meg.
Yeah, I was just going to share. I thought this stat was interesting that 3/4 of marketers say that creativity is still essential, but 70% say that their colleagues are risk averse in the current climate. So that leads to a lot of conflict around how to shape business strategy, which is really what we want to talk about today. You know, how do you prioritize what budget you do have, and how do you decide, you know, how to keep that creativity alive and keep your marketing running when you don't have the budget that you're used to.
Yeah, it brings us right into exactly what we're talking about, Meg. So that was a great find. Like we chatted about, the knee jerk in times of budget crisis, I found, and you guys weigh in on this, is that marketing teams are cutting all the activity that doesn't give you instant gratification of leads, immediately direct response type of leads. And then they keep all of their bottom of funnel conversion efforts on, or even reallocate scant budgets into these tactics that are super bottom of funnel, because they're trying to get numbers in to show that marketing is doing its job. And I mean, honestly, I put this together just to illustrate why that doesn't necessarily always work. So let's give an example, right? So say you've got 50 grand to spend, round number, and you're going to split that. You know, a lot of marketing teams that I know are going with LinkedIn lead gen, because you have a bird in the hand when you get a lead right into your LinkedIn, or AdWords. Your PPC is going to stay on. And if you look at that from a funnel perspective, your LinkedIn ads are going to cost you, I don't know, roughly $200 a lead, yielding around 225 leads for 25K if we split this in half, right? And PPC, maybe that costs you $400 a lead, and that's going to yield you 62.5 leads for that 25K. So if we look at this, I've just plotted that out using our best case benchmark example from Serious Decisions for companies under 50 million in revenue. These are the companies I typically see, so that's why this I have this benchmark. That means you're going to get 188 leads combined for these two channels, right, for that 50 grand. Those are going to convert at around 46%. So you've lost 54% of your investment already, just as a side note. And then that's going to yield you with 86 MQLs. Of those 86 MQLs, 8% of those are likely going to go into an opportunity stage. So thinking about 7 opportunities here. Let's say a quarter of those convert into deals. Now you've got 1.8 deals for your 50K that you've spent, which means your ACV has to be at least 25K in order to break even. And it's not that this is right or wrong. It's a way to do it. I have another example here. This is a real life example of a startup I've worked with in the past that's under 20 million in revenue. They MQL 100% of their leads. They only take in, you know, what they call kind of high value forms. So contact us, demos, trials, those kinds of things. And they MQL everybody who comes in through a form. This particular company's MQL to SQL rate, they have 2 phases in their funnel, is going to be 5% to SQL. And then SQL to op goes in at 41%. And then op to deal is 16%. So with those metrics, they're getting half a deal, which, as we all know, doesn't really work that way. So that's why when we run these numbers through our funnel metrics, you see that this knee jerk to do lead gen doesn't actually prove the most successful way that you could run this. So what do we do instead? Let's stop. What if there was a world where we stopped trying to capture lead info at the top of the funnel? I know it's nuts. I know it's crazy. When we say we take leads off the table, we say we don't need leads. You can stay anonymous until you're ready to evaluate a solution. So that gives us fewer MQLs and a higher conversion rate down funnel. So we're thinking 30% of these MQLs are going to go into our opportunities created bucket. And let's use that same quarter that's from our benchmark from op to deal. That gives us 4 deals at 25K ACV. That means we're going to double our investment here. So this is just another way to think about why that knee-jerk reaction isn't necessarily what we want to be doing in times of budget crisis. Do you guys have any opinions or thoughts there?
I mean, I think it makes sense. It's a knee-jerk reaction, like you said, to prove, almost like out of fear, to have to prove, yeah, well, we can still get new leads, we can still get some new customers, and again, not right or wrong, but it also overlooks expansion opportunities with your current customers and what that funnel might look like if you pay more attention to that during this time. But I think the fear piece is really important that you mentioned earlier. It's just this reaction.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree. All right, so let's get into it. And if you guys have, we want this to be conversational. So if anybody that's watching has comments or questions, we're watching the chat. So pop them in. One of us will interrupt and go for the question. So we wanted to talk a little bit about now what you can do for little or no budget. Where should you focus whenever your budget does get cut? So I'm going to actually just remove our slide deck for a sec so we can go back here. And Shireen, I know that you had some thoughts around customer campaigns that I want to tee up for you. Yeah.
Yeah. I just think kind of what I was just saying. I mean, you have current customers, hopefully, where you're at right now. And this is a great opportunity to talk to them, do some research. That can happen with little or no budget. I don't know if others have also experience with that. There's obviously ways to do that with budget where you can really do a recruitment and make it a bigger program, but you could pick some of your 5 to 10 ideal customers that you already have, not only to learn from them, but also that's a retention play. You're engaging your current customers in that research and hearing them, hearing their feedback. And that's super powerful. Majority of the customers that I've done this with are actually really excited to do that and feel that they're playing a role at your company. So I feel like it's such table stakes in this time. That should happen all year round in any economic climate. But at this time, you would be missing something huge to not do that activity. And again, it can be really 5 to 10 customers brought together. Ask them some key questions. Why did they buy from you from the first place? What were the pain points you're solving for them? How did they find you? Do a little reset. So I just think this is a great time, I think, to do that. Really no budget involved to do that besides the resources you already have on hand.
And Meg, I know you know a lot about this too, because you do this for clients all the time. How do you take those conversations and parlay that into growth material?
Content. Yeah, exactly. I think every single time you have a conversation with a customer, you learn something that you can turn into content, if not a bunch of things. So
yeah, me too. I mean, everything from like case studies, you can use that stuff in your sales decks. Like customer conversations are the goal that people, especially marketing teams, I don't know how many times I've been on a marketing team or consulted for a marketing team that has not talked to their customers like ever.
Right.
Oh, CS holds them from us. We can't talk to sales. You know, you guys experience that?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Crazy.
It's crazy to me. So great.
That needs to change. Maybe that's a good change that we'll see come out of this.
Well, I think people need to understand the importance of marketing being able to talk to the customers, to be able to get the insights about what really drove their decision making to start to consider their product. And then I also think marketing really needs to oftentimes lead the way in terms of understanding what industries and verticals to be focused in. And that's really important right now, where there are going to be winners and losers coming out of this shift in our economy. And it's time, like, I think one of the important things to learn during your customer conversations is about their industry, what's going on there, to really understand, like, do we want to be selling into this vertical? Do we want to be selling into these geographies across the world? Because there are likely going to be a subset of your customers that are really going to expand and grow coming out of this. And other ones, their industries are never going to come back. I think back to 2008, like back office finance jobs have not come back into the US. They got offshored and they never came back. There's a lot of implications for that. And to look at what's going to happen in 2023 and pay close attention to that could help you figure out success.
I think people underestimate the fact that marketing can influence business decisions, you know, that us talking to those customers could have an impact on business outcomes. I think a lot of times that gets overlooked. So I think it's a great point.
Right.
Yeah. And one other quick thing, Carrie, you mentioned CS and sales, like in case they might be like holding on to their customers or which I get that. And I've experienced that too. But just reminding me that CS and sales is also a great focus group for you. It doesn't have to be direct to customer. You can actually speak to them. They're your closest to your customer, and probably also support, I would say, closest to your customer besides the customer themselves. So,
and you can listen to their calls too. Like a ton of them will invite you to their calendars, and you can just pop into their calls and be a silent figure listening in, which will give you some good insights too.
We're huge fans of Gong and Chorus too. I think all marketing teams should be pushing for that so they can listen to the recorded conversations, even if they're not able to make all the calls.
Invaluable, honestly. Every time I join a Gong or Chorus call, like a recording, I learn something. So All right. So Shireen, one last thing on this. How do those conversations help you in thinking about your positioning and messaging?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's the first place I always start, and even reevaluating your positioning and messaging are these customer calls. Go direct to the customer, internal as well, like I said, with employees on the team. But this is the best time to go and reset your positioning or review. It might not even need a reset, but review and make sure that your positioning, why you're unique in the market, are your messages resonating with your audience? Are there new competitors in the market you're not aware of that you might hear from customers? great time to do that. And I know I said this already. I mean, this should happen anyway. This should happen probably every 6 months. I would say you should review your positioning, especially right now.
Yeah.
But the market's changing so
Amen.
fast. But yeah, and it's hard to do that. It's hard to like allocate that time. But if you need to be prioritizing right now and have low budget, these are things you can do on little or no budget, honestly. So taking all that intake from customers feeds right into positioning and messaging work, which typically is product marketing, but we work really closely with like Meg content marketing teams to bring that to life. Demand gen, all of us work together to then take all that.
You're so right, Shireen. And the thing that I find a lot of times is that I go into companies where their demand gen programs are not working as they should. And it's nothing other than a messaging problem. Like it all stems back to the fact that the company doesn't know their customers as well as they should, and they don't have their messaging pinned and spot on, and their demand gen campaigns are using that messaging, and that's why they're falling flat. So
yeah, 100%. Yeah.
All right. So Meg, talk to me a little bit about how you can remix your current content into new formats.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's another really key area where you don't need to spend a lot of money to look at the current content you have. A lot of businesses really have more content than they know what to do with at this point in time. And there's so many different ways that you can, especially if you've got your message right, and you know you've got your message right, take that and turn it into different types of content. So, you know, for example, you might take 4 blogs you've written on a specific topic and turn it into an ebook. Not gated, most likely, right? You know, it depends on your strategy, of course, but we certainly are big fans of not gating, especially, you know, top and middle of funnel content. But you can turn that into an ebook with a conclusion and an introduction pretty easily. Another thing that, you know, we are seeing just explode right now is video. B2B tech buyers really want to consume short form video. In the buying process, there's some crazy stats out there that like 70% of B2B buyers say they want to watch videos before they buy. They retain messages a lot better in video format. And often, you know, they're more willing to go look at your ebook and read the whole thing or read your long blog post on whatever topic if they've gotten a taste of it through a video that that really whets their appetite for whatever the topic might be. So and there's lots of SEO benefits too to going back and looking at your older content, which I don't know, John, you might want to jump in there, refreshing and repurposing content that you've already put out there that's maybe working or not working as well as you want it to, but there's a lot of opportunity around refreshing and repurposing.
Yeah, I wanted to ask where are you seeing success with video? Is that on the website? Is that YouTube? Is that LinkedIn? All of the above? But
all of the above, I think. Yeah, because I think it really, especially, you know, if you're trying to compete in search, putting videos on your actual, you know, landing pages or in your blog posts works really well. But a lot of people want to consume on platform, right? So I think LinkedIn is a great place to be posting videos. I think YouTube is a great place to be posting videos. I don't think you need to do all of the above necessarily, especially if you have limited budget. But if you're creating a video, it doesn't take a lot of extra effort to put it in a lot of different places and make sure you're reaching people wherever they are.
And there's lots of different types of video. I think the worst thing you could do is think about video from a produced aspect. I think
so true.
Nobody is watching produced videos anymore. And B2B brands love a produced like sizzle reel of like customers at a trade show, you know, like nobody's watching that. They're watching user generated content like on your iPhone.
The more authentic, the better.
Totally. And if you don't have budget, like the marketer can jump in there and review a piece of content that's written on a screen share, like use a Loom and give your like highlights and give people your take on why this piece is really great and the highlights out of it. Like you can think outside the box on video. It doesn't need to be produced or cost a lot of money.
And somebody jumped in on the chat. I just wanted to share and ask how long should the videos be and how high production value is needed for those videos. I think we answered the second part of that question. I think how long the videos are is something to test, but generally like 30 to 60 seconds is about what people want to consume on most platforms. So keep them short.
And make sure they have the subtitles.
Yes, captioning is really key.
Sorry, John, you were going to say something.
I get drilled on that all the time, not having sub captions. So definitely
I'd recommend
like I think we use Descript, Rev.com, and Simon Says .ai are all great platforms for that. But I think part of the for captioning for the for the length of video, I think that is related to kind of the lack of production that we're seeing, right? So we see a lot of trends with TikTok, YouTube's investing heavily in shorts, Instagram has followed suit with Reels. And so we do see that 30 to 60 second, that's a good, even though those are often thought of as consumer apps, that's a good indication of how consumers are consuming the content. But I also think it gives a good excuse for more production of video on a more regular basis that's a little bit shorter rather than spending 1 month to produce a 30-minute video. Spend spend a couple of days each month creating a bunch of 30 to 60-second videos.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, John. And I think that actually gets us to our next point with what you can do for little or no budget is think about how you can distribute all of your content in an organic way. And even if you have smaller dollars, like distribution of that content is way less than lead generation campaigns. So getting your name out there, impressions are going to cost you less than generating a lead. And so I think there's a lot to be said for thinking about distribution and thinking about distribution as a form of content, not just, we have to put up this ad, but take your content and chop it up into assets that you can distribute. So just a quick note on that.
We have a question in the comments. What advice do you have for companies who do not have a BDR team to help accelerate growth and move folks through the funnel? Thanks, Sarah, for asking that. I feel like that's a good Carrie question.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that one. So I think people who don't have a BDR team are in the best place they could be. I know it's controversial, but I'm gonna put it out there. I think BDR, SDR groups are, as a function, are gonna go the way of the dinosaur in the next 5 years. I think that there is a way, and it's a much better way, in my opinion, to harness qualified leads or qualified conversations for your account executives without the SDR function almost in the way. And I think that goes to what we talked about earlier, which is if you're not capturing leads at the top of the funnel that you then have to nurture all the way down your funnel, then you can pass those qualified prospects over to your AEs without all of that stuff in the way, because consumers are doing their own research now anyway. How many people on this call chat us, everybody here raise your hand, answer SDR emails? Unless you're doing somebody a favor. We don't answer their emails. And if somebody calls me on my cell, forget it.
Blacklisted.
Exactly. So I think honestly, Sarah, your question is really valid. And I think you're in the best spot ever to launch a strategy where you don't pass leads anymore because they're not qualified and you don't have the SDR function to qualify them. So only pass over people who are further in their buying process. Anybody else have to say,
Carrie, would you agree that content kind of becomes your BDR team, quote unquote? Leverage content and other assets to bring people more down the funnel and qualify, then pass them on.
You want to think about the content to create at each stage of the funnel. Like when somebody's having a pain, how do we get those people in? What might the pain be or the inflection point be that drives them to want to ultimately want your product? And then when they're in market, thinking about what their challenges are, and also what are the typically there's a buying committee behind that person. So it's not just, if you're selling into the CMO, it's not just the CMO's needs. Maybe the CFO is also going to get involved, or the senior vice president of customer success is going to understand, how does this tool integrate with Zendesk so we get a full customer picture of everything that's going on. So I think that's really powerful. But the challenge with the BDR was it was not aligned with the buying process, right? It was this awkward 15-minute call that you had with someone who just and you were okay, I had a time, I was looking at Inside View, which was one of the original data augmentation partners. And I remember I needed to buy something within 7 days, and they got me on the phone and they had this 15-minute qualification call. And I was I am ready to purchase. And they were okay, let me see if I can schedule something. And they didn't schedule something with me for 2 weeks, whatever. It was such a realization for me in my career that was such a broken process.
Oh, John is with me on the BDR function going.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm not out there on my own.
So I think a couple of the tools that I've seen recently, I don't know how to say it. I've only ever read it. Reprise does the external demos of products so that you can show people what it looks like. Omidim is a video LMS type solution that allows you to create a lot of content up funnel to educate people the same way a BDR may educate them, so you can get them ready to talk to the sales team. PLG is all over the place now. I'm sure the constant contact people and log me in people in the call are but I think that's really one of the places where the sales process started to get completely shifted, was product led. And now a lot of the companies that go straight to demo, they can't have a trial for whatever reason, are skipping that SDR process still.
Yeah. So I hope that answers your question, Sarah. Thanks everybody for chiming in there too. So I think we just have a couple more points on what you can do for little or no budget, and then we've got to move on because we're it's already half past. I can't believe it. So one of the things we talked about as a group was really thinking about culture and how thinking about culture actually enhances your brand in the market, and how, from my standpoint, culture is one of the things that buyers check on. Like, people go and look at your Glassdoor reviews to see if you are a crummy company, because if you treat your employees bad, you're going to treat customers bad too.
Yeah.
So I don't know, Meg, if you want to weigh in there, what you've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think your brand matters. I think this feeds into your point, Carrie, that it's brand first. So know what people are saying about you on Glassdoor, and make sure that you're building an awesome culture. Make sure that you're treating your employees well. Make sure that you're treating your customers well. That should go without saying, but let's say it. And then I think, ask your happy team members to write reviews on Glassdoor. Make sure you're being proactive about that kind of thing. And you can also think about some of these videos that we're recommending you create as being culture videos too, because people want to kind of get a peek behind the curtain and know what you're all about as a brand before they buy from you.
Yeah, totally agree. I think exposing who you are as a company, especially in tech, is really part of the, people evaluate as part of the buying process.
Yeah.
So, John, do you want to talk a little bit about ABM and what you can do there for no budget or little budget?
Yeah. So the biggest challenge we see with companies is they immediately jump to Terminus. I don't mean to pick on anyone. Terminus, I think, has done a great job marketing themselves. But when companies, somewhere along the way, ABM got aligned with display. And we think about ABM in 3 different buckets: sales and marketing integration, driving engagement, and then upper funnel awareness. And I think a lot of companies start with upper funnel awareness. They pour a lot of money into display. And really, we think going down funnel, getting Zoom info integrated, making sure you're aligned on who the ICP is, making sure you're putting a lot of time and effort into really creating tight segmentation around who your ideal customer profile is. And then starting to build out into some of the low-hanging fruit around engagement, which is like, let's do some co-marketing opportunities with other companies that are targeting companies with the same ICP as us, which is account-based marketing. You can see the logos on their website to understand if you have customers in common with your target list. Getting your sales team to reach out to people in their network is something that I think, again, is something you need to pay attention to and is oftentimes overlooked in the name of trying to find scale. So those are the places where I would start.
Sounds like we had a little snafu where just for a few people it restarted from the beginning, but it sounds like it's back. I don't know if
recording as well. So we are going to share out the recording when we figure out if we can get a list of everybody and all of that. We're live stream newbies here, but
regardless, we'll share it on LinkedIn, so it should be pretty easy to find. Yeah,
definitely. Okay, so now I want to get into where to actually invest. So you've got dollars, maybe it's not a lot of dollars. Where should we be putting our dollars right now? So I think one of the big things that Meg and I talk a lot about in our conversations is content creation. And I know, Meg, this is your wheelhouse, your sweet spot. So I'll let you talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so you still need top of funnel assets to continue to drive awareness of your category and create a need in the market for your solution. So I would say focusing on pillar pieces is a really good strategy. We like to guide our clients to creating at least one big pillar piece, whether it's an ebook or a really meaty landing page per quarter, and then chopping that up into lots of other types of content. So getting back to the kind of repurposing and redistributing your content. So I would definitely say that's a really key place to focus your efforts.
Yeah. And I would say on that same vein, taking that content, if you're investing in content and putting money and having either a resource headcount or external agency or even freelancer help you create content, don't let that content go to waste organic wise. You've got to amplify that content. So instead of turning on your lead gen campaigns, I would encourage you to think about how you can build LinkedIn awareness and engagement campaigns. Think about like an always on content distribution campaign in LinkedIn, right? Where you post something organically and you add it straight into your promoted posts and let your entire ICP see those blog posts, ebooks, whatever, new pillar pages on your site, videos, whatever it might be. Amplify that content to your audience so that they're getting a number of impressions and the frequency that you're reaching them, you're top of mind all the time with good content. So I think distribution and rethinking how you spend your money is really an interesting and important piece there. The other thing I'd say is pay somebody to run your social channels.
Oh my gosh, please.
Like, I am not a social media person. I do not claim to be a social expert. I need somebody who is an expert in social media, especially now, to be running my organic and my paid social. Like hands down, not even a question. Don't cut out your social person because it's so important right now.
It's such a specialized skill set too. It's not something you should throw an intern at, in my opinion. I see way too many B2B tech companies doing that. And I think you really just need to take it more seriously than that.
I completely agree. I think we're all in agreement there, right?
Yeah. One thing I wanted to point out is I'm noticing a theme even in our own conversation that everything we're talking about is leading to how important it is, especially now, to continue to stay top of mind. Again, that's always the case. We're all marketers here. That's what we do. But things like repurposing content, put some that are always on, like keep investing in organic social, if not more at this time, is just like keep the lights on kind of a theme. Because this is going to shift again. Like this, it will at some point. So yeah, just want more noticing that theme.
Somebody asked in the chat, how much should you pay to have someone run social, which is a loaded question. And what should you expect from that? I don't know if anyone on the team feels like they're enough of an expert in social media to answer that question.
Well, Meg, I was going to ask, Meg, do you guys run social media?
Absolutely not. We do not.
Okay. So I think you could expect to probably come in and start paying someone around $3,000 a month on paid social. I think if you're going to make the investment, I have a kind of chart that I look at. And so it kind of depends on what your ACV is. But I typically recommend, as like a rule of thumb, that looking at like a $10,000 a month spend on LinkedIn is usually like the lowest we would really recommend going. And so $3,000 is about 30% of that. And then you should expect that to kind of that percentage of media spend that you're paying out to the person managing should go down from 30% pretty quickly. But that is about kind of where I would
30% of your media spend, John, is what you're saying is a good ballpark, or no?
No, I think to like start, if you're starting out with 10,000, like my agency starts out a little bit above that, but typically we're working with companies that are planning to scale marketing pretty quickly. And so we come down as a percentage of spend off of that. We started out at 5,000, but I think if you're looking to spend kind of always on campaigns, I wouldn't at $10,000 a month, I wouldn't spend much less than $3,000 a month for an outsourced person, because I just don't think you're going to get very
I think that's the bare minimum you're saying, right?
I'm sorry.
And let's be honest, like that's not a lot. Like that to get somebody who's a specialist in social, like paid or organic, like that's not a lot of money. So go for it.
And then it really compares on how much creative they're developing for you, how often they're doing different audience tests for you, et cetera, as you start to scale up and spend more budget.
Yeah, I think we could do a whole other segment on social content.
And invite a social media expert, at least on the organic side.
I think I probably won't be on that. I won't be on that panel.
I am curious, Carrie, Meg, Shireen, when you're running the paid campaigns, how are you all augmenting that with organic? Because I think that's so important to have those two messages tied together. So I wanted to kind of open that up to the group. Hopefully not putting anybody on the spot.
No, not at all. I think I recommend to my clients to repurpose everything they're doing in organic for paid. So you're not recreating the wheel, but you're leveraging all the content that you're creating and amplifying it to the next level.
Right.
So I think organic and paid go hand in hand, and paid is just to keep going, keep the frequency up. I mean, think about the algorithms right now on LinkedIn. You're reaching like 0.04% of your audience with an organic post. So you got to put some dollars behind that as a business in order for anybody to see all this valuable content that you're creating, right?
Yeah. Only thing, I'm not an expert in this, so I won't pretend to be, but only thing I'll say is I like to think of organic when I've worked with demand gen teams as a great way to test out your content a little bit and see what audiences gravitate to. So it gives you some insight. My cat's definitely on my lap right now during this. What audiences are gravitating to, and then elevate that with paid. Like use it as a tool to get some analytics, and then go see where you're going to invest based on that. But that's, again, I'm not.
Well, that's a really good scrappy suggestion, Shireen. I hadn't thought about
that. The reason why I asked that question was I think the 1 + 1 in that situation equals 3. When your message is aligned on organic and on paid, it's going to be a lot more powerful in terms of how it resonates with the customer and how it drives recall for those customers, which is ultimately what we're trying to do.
You're 100% right.
And so in the name of, like, as we're talking about cutting budgets, et cetera, completely going dark on one channel isn't often the answer. Oftentimes you want to really pay attention to how they interact with each other.
Absolutely. I totally agree, John. I also think that there are a lot of companies out there that have different people running organic and paid. And so the content is different when it should not be. Therefore, the messaging is different. And if you go look at people's paid posts, like on any channel, it's going to be these always on type of like, get a demo, start your free trial, like in our space anyway, which is like, you're kind of like wasting your opportunity there. Like really think about content for social, which I think I'm going to like do a whole other thing on because I'm all over this right now. But
sorry, one thing. I go into my other inbox in LinkedIn and you find people who are immediately pitching you, sending you their Calendly links, looking to set you up with a demo. And that's why they're in my other box. Then I have my actual inbox, which is people who are looking to connect with me, people who are looking to meet with me, probably ultimately going to sell me. But I think we should think about paid acquisition on social the same way. Like we can't just say, hi, please try a demo.
No, yes. That goes back to that like bottom of funnel advertising of like, you don't know who I am, but do you want to get a demo from me? It's like, no, I don't know who you are or what you do. So it's the same exact thing. All right. So we're at 12:45. No. Okay. So we've talked a lot. We have more, but I think we've got to roll. So we want to play a little game. It's called Cut or Keep. And we're going to just roll through some things that we have some like handy little note cards here.
And you guys, if you want to play along in the comments, please feel free.
All right. So I'm actually going to roll up our slide deck here. We've got a couple of little things. All right. So
I guess just comment cut or keep if you want to do it in the comments.
Okay. So organic search. That's me. John, one with the Nike swoosh.
Yeah, I love
it. All right. I think we're all in agreement. Organic, and pay somebody to do SEO for you. It's really not expensive. I think
please make sure that all of your content is optimized.
Yes.
Please.
Yes. All right. Paid search. I'll let other people go first, but I'm going
to be honest.
I think you have to keep your brand terms alive. But I also think, and John, I want you to comment on this, but I think there's a ton of waste in paid search. I think that people's keyword set is too broad and they're doing it to drive site visitors and they're getting unqualified, really expensive traffic that they don't need.
Yeah. And the other thing that I would say is you need to connect your CRM data to your Google Ads data, which is going to help Google target your right customers. And that's an exercise everyone should be doing right now to make sure you're spending on the best customers.
Yes, I love that point. All right, paid social. This one's going to be controversial. Meg with the depends card. I'm going keep.
I should have drawn a little diaper. That would have been fun.
What did you say? No?
I think it depends on who your audience is.
I think it depends on what your strategy is too, right? Like if you're doing LinkedIn lead gen, get rid of that. It's too expensive.
Well, someone said it really well. Keep but optimize. I agree with that.
Ooh,
agree.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And do what Shireen recommended, right? Like test things out organically first.
Yeah, I love that. Organic social, yes, in my opinion.
I do think though that it's smart to choose a few channels and do them well. Don't try to be everywhere. Not every brand really needs to be super active on Twitter or like God forbid Facebook.
Don't knock Facebook out though. Some of our target audiences are still on Facebook.
I think it depends on your brand and it depends on your audience. And if they are there, then absolutely be there.
Totally. All right. Next, digital advertising. So this, I'll let other people. I realize I'm always saying the first thing. Depends.
Yeah. And keep it optimized category for that.
John, I'm going to get you a Sharpie for some kind of holiday.
I know. I should have done I don't know.
I think keep, but if it's display, I think no. I think get rid of display because it's not, I think it could be expensive. It can also be very cheap, but it's driving superfluous traffic to your site that you really don't need because a lot of times it's not targeted well enough anyway. So I'd say both. I don't know what this one means. Traditional advertising, like print, out of home.
Yes, I think this was supposed to have. It had like a little thingy originally.
Maybe like if it's print or out of home, like
exactly print, out of home, exactly those kinds of things.
Yeah, aren't those more expensive? So no.
Yeah,
I think it depends if you can really be doing a lot of it, right? So out of home and print are really good when you're everywhere for everyone or everywhere for your target audience. But if you are having to kind of cut that budget a little bit, I'd really think about cutting the whole thing. It's like one banner by the side of the highway isn't going to do it. You need like 20 on the way.
That's interesting. All or nothing. Kind of.
Yeah, I agree. Content creation, I think we already talked about. Yep.
Somebody asked, what about retargeting?
I think absolutely. I think retargeting, you're wasting spend if you're not retargeting, because you're paying, like, especially if you're paying to get visitors to your site. Without retargeting, they're seeing you one time. So retarget them as they behave on the internet, where they go. Okay. Oh, sorry, we missed content syndication. Again, controversial, but
yeah, probably no.
I think content syndication is a dud nowadays, and that's all I really have to say about that. PR, what do you guys think?
I think it depends.
Also depends.
I think I started my career out in PR, so I definitely have some opinions on this. I think you just need to be really smart about what your PR strategy is. And I think, like, let's talk about cybersecurity, for example. Like, do cybersecurity companies need to be in the New York Times and, you know, Forbes and all those kinds of places in order to be successful? Probably not. Do they need to be in Dark Reading and CISO Magazine and places like that? Yeah, they probably do, because that's what CISOs and buyers are reading. So I think you just need to be smart about PR, because it tends to be very, very expensive. So you need to make sure that, you know, you've got a PR firm. Somebody said depends on what you're doing, and I totally agree. You need to
I think it's interesting that Shireen said keep, because she's a storyteller, and I think, and she's really good at understanding the brand, and she's amazing at that. And if you're just looking to get like mentions, etc., it doesn't really, it's not going to be something to invest in. But if you're working with like a Shireen, and you're really coming up with a compelling story for your company to be telling over the course of months, it can be an incredibly powerful tool.
No, thank you. I was going to say something similar, but I appreciate what you said. I think, yeah, if there's a core narrative and something, I'm thinking both narrative brand wise, but I'm also thinking launch wise, like product launches are big in our world, and product marketing. And if there is like a tier 1 launch and it's important for your brand and your customers and prospects to know about it, I do support PR, all within a story, right? We don't just launch this thing launched. But
I think one of the key things when it comes to PR and content, again, this is like kind of my intersection, is that you shouldn't have 2 different messaging documents or story sheets that you're singing from. You need to make sure that your content and your PR are telling the same story. And I see so much misalignment there. So if you have a content team in-house or outsourced, if you have a PR team in-house or outsourced, make sure they're talking to each other and having a meeting together, like at least once a month, to be fully aligned.
And I like have to plug product marketing here, otherwise it wouldn't be fair. But that is a big part of product marketing's role, is like driving that narrative and positioning and making sure all teams are aligned. So leverage your product marketing team if you have one. It's so critical to do that.
Totally agree.
And a lot of it starts with like your own internal content, right? That's where the nugget of the story can start, and then you can take it out to other places. But the organic LinkedIn content on your site, the video you're creating with Megawatt, is all going to feed that PR narrative externally as well.
Totally.
Would you agree, Meg? Or did
Absolutely. No, you said it perfectly.
All right, AR. Analyst relations, we pay Gartner and Forrester a whole lot of money.
I think you have to do it if you're an enterprise company, especially. I think it kind of stinks, but you kind of do have to do it if you're in certain circles.
Yeah, I would say though too, if you're a Series A, put that budget somewhere else, and definitely don't go to those trade shows. Like, not at all. It's just you're not a big enough player to have an impact there. Your money would go further digitally. So, all right, AI tools. Like what? What are we thinking of here?
I use Jasper.
Jasper? Yep.
I've heard really good things about writer.com, and then ChatGPT is huge, but
taking the world by storm.
They've been really helpful for me for like
HubSpot just made a big announcement on AI for content.
Yeah, I need to check that one out.
Give us the short story, Meg.
It's in beta. You have to request access to it right now, but they just launched a content AI tool and another AI tool. I forget what the second one was. So I think you have to be out there experimenting with it, because it is going to change how content marketing works and a lot of other aspects of marketing. So I think you need to be out there experimenting with it. And I think the good news is that it's not that expensive right now if you're doing it smart, and if you're, testing things wisely. So I say, keep your investment in innovation, which is really how I think about it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Email marketing. Constant contact, girl. I mean, Gotta say, keep.
I mean,
Podcasting. Ooh, this is interesting.
Although it does depend. It does depend. I think okay, so one good thing to think about with podcasting is you can have your own podcast, but you can also guest on podcasts, which is our strategy as an agency, right? We're not going to start our own podcast because we don't want to put the resources behind it. Not that it's an extreme outlay by any means, but it's not where we're focusing. We've decided to focus on other types of content, but we are guesting on podcasts, and that helps you reach other people's audiences. So
I love that.
I just want to say one thing about podcasting. If you don't have enough good content to keep a steady drumbeat of really interesting stuff for a podcast, don't do a podcast. There's so many podcasts out there that are not good podcasts. So like, just be honest with yourself. If you've got the makings of a great podcast, hell yeah, do it. But don't create a really dud podcast because it's not going to help you, I don't think. Webinars and online events. I'd say free ones, yeah. Like in-house produced ones, yes. Live events, LinkedIn live events, yes. Paid webinars, third-party stuff. You're paying for leads, and they're usually not going to convert anyways. So I'd say no. Oh my gosh, I'm flying because we have to get through these. In real life events. Oh, I have lots of opinions about this.
I mean, this could be attending versus like getting a booth. Two very different things.
Yeah.
So let's say, should you get a booth, Carrie? What do you think?
Yeah, they're so expensive and they don't have the reach and power that they had pre-COVID yet. Again,
that's a good point.
And you can do a lot of stuff digitally that for that money. I mean, if you think about what you pay, we're in cybersecurity. You go to Black Hat, you're paying 80 plus grand for just your space. That's not even including your build. Like, and that's no promotion behind it either. Like, that's a big chunk of a small company's budget. So I'd say, man.
Shout out to Sarah for the participation.
Sarah.
Love it.
All right. Community building. That's a no-brainer, I feel like.
Yeah. Again, I think it's really important. Your community person could be your social person as well, but you need to have somebody who's an expert at
it. Customer retention.
100%.
They're the most valuable asset you have as a company, and I think so many people forget that.
Yeah.
Tell us what we missed. And we're at the top of the hour, so if anybody has questions, comments, feedback, the four of us.
We have a great question I'll just throw out there. I know we're at the top of the hour, but somebody asked, what do you recommend on understanding and planning for longer term impacts of short-term cuts?
Wait,
I think that person wants to elaborate at all, maybe give an example, but we can start answering it too.
What do you recommend on understanding? I have to read this again. I would say, if I understand this correctly, I think planning for the cuts. So they're asking, what are going to be how can you plan for the impacts of those cuts? Meaning like your lead flow is going to cut down in 2 months because you're cutting budget right now. Yeah. I would say prepare your exec team and model it out. Like, John, you can probably echo this too as a professional in business economics and how you talk about things, but modeling it out so that they know, like, this is how it's going to affect your pipe and your amount of revenue that we're influencing. So model it out for them, I would say, is one core thing to do. And then I'd say get ahead of that impact by doing these other things where we're recommending to invest and what you can do for little or no budget. So that messaging exercise we talked about at the beginning is going to help you in Q3, Q4 this year, because the messages you do put out in market are really going to hit home. I hope that's helpful. So yeah, stay connected with us, everybody. Thank you so much for coming live. We had so many of you join, which we were not expecting, and we're so grateful for. So thank you. These guys, so Meg and John both have newsletters that they publish, which we'll link out on LinkedIn. Connect with us. Don't be afraid. And then Meg and I are working on an ebook too, all about bridging the gap between branding and demand generation in the B2B tech world. So thanks, everybody.